A beautiful nation is located in the interior of East Africa, Uganda. However, Uganda is one of the poorest nations on earth for a long time. After its independence in 1962, unstable political conditions have ruined all the progress of the country for a long time. Even after all these dilemmas, the country of Uganda is seen as a high prospect for economic growth and stability. 3 reasons are behind this: mass amount of agricultural land, large population, and the natural resources of energy within the country. Like all the other developing nations, Uganda also needs large monetary investments for the energy industry to grow and also increase the public utilities for increasing productivity. Otherwise, scaling up the infrastructure for growth is not possible. To get successful for constructing the economy, a 20-year plan was summoned by the civil aviation sector. The plan was to upgrade the only international airport of the country, Entebbe Airport. This airport was located only 40 kilometers southwest from the capital of Uganda, and the plan was to make this airport as a hub for the East African region. And as Uganda is a landlocked country, it was important for them to create such a hub for further development. From 2015, the nation started its hunt for loans to fund the massive project, and they found a Chinese bank who made a contract of providing $207 million in the next 20 years for funding the regional hub. While it reflects a simple agreement between 2 parties, rather, it is a master plan made by China to become the superpower of the world. If you have seen our previous videos, you already know how China is trying to establish itself as the superpower of the world by taking over Asia. Coming back to the situation in Uganda, things started very smoothly for Uganda. The Uganda government made a very hasty decision while making the contract, and when experts looked into the details of the contracts, there were 13 clauses that came with this $207 million loan contract. And the Civil Aviation Authority of Uganda has stated these clauses as extreme and toxic to a friendly nation. The Ugandan authority has stated 13 clauses to be toxic in this contract. One of these clauses gives power to China to budget and veto the yearly budgets of the airport. Also, a clause stated that the Chinese court will be able to mortgage out the airport with all the channels. The Ugandan leaders either made this hasty contract in a hurry, or they just were under the pressure of the Chinese government to take the risk. But after the start of COVID-19 pandemic, the economy of Uganda started to shrink, and the economy was crippled by the stoppage of global trade. Uganda tried to renegotiate the contract, while China rejected the offer. There were allegations that the Chinese government was going to take over the airport by November 28, 2021. However, due to international pressure, no takeover took place. Even in the future, if a full takeover occurs, it would not be a surprising thing. Over the course of 2010 to present, China has taken over a large number of significant infrastructures from developing countries by making them fall for a debt trap. The Belt and Road Initiative has made it possible for the Chinese to make these debt traps all over the underdeveloped and developing parts of the world. Now, what is the Belt and Road Initiative? The president of China, Xi Jinping, names the Belt and Road Initiative as the project of the century. The goal of this initiative is to make China the epicenter of global economy by developing infrastructure in different parts of the world and ultimately making China a superpower. China has developed this plan surrounding 140 countries of the world. This includes almost 70% of the world population. Based on this initiative, China provides massive loans to developing countries for developing infrastructure projects. The country has loaned out over $500 billion for this project. Most of these developing countries are under the leadership of more or less corrupted leaders who took the loans and didn't care much about the bailouts. Such initiatives are not new in the first world. The USA spent around $135 billion to $150 billion adjusted for price increase for reconstructing Western Europe after the World War II was over. The USA called it as the Marshall Plan. However, China has provided loans to poor-income countries that are not likely to pay off these debts ever. And the Chinese control over their territories is a must after that. Debt trap diplomacy is simply cutting off a nation's ability to pay back a loan. When they are unable to pay off, they would release assets to China and let them take over the resources. If we look into the matter of Uganda, China would simply take over the airport, or they would agree upon deals that would benefit the Chinese government. In 2019 also, Kenya almost lost control over its port of Mombasa to China. It is also the biggest port in the African continent. Also, the port of Mombasa is the most significant economic contributor to Kenya's economy. 82% of the country's transits are done through this airport. But to save this port now, Kenya has to pay off 40% of its tax payments revenue to the Chinese government. This is how Kenya has been starving due to the debt trap they fell for. Another country that has lost its economic stability due to Chinese debt trap is Sri Lanka. We have a video on how the Chinese debt trap has played a vital role in destroying the Lankan economy. The link will be in the description box. However, Sri Lanka has now leased out a port to China for 99 years. Military experts fear that China has taken over this port only to have a geographical advantage in any war situations with its geopolitical rival India. Because the port is only 330 kilometers away from the Indian territories. In Djibouti, China has developed a naval base and along the most significant shipping lane on Earth. This also took place thanks to the debt trap. Due to this financial pressure, these developing countries are becoming largely obedient to Beijing. As the Chinese economy has established itself in the supreme position of Asia with trade, the Belt and Road Initiative has helped this cause too. If your country's most important transits are controlled by a country named XYZ, you have to make all the trade deals only with XYZ. China is slowly becoming this country, and this is simply known as the debt trap diplomacy. Over the last 4 decades, China has seen massive growth, and cheap labor was the key factor here. But with time, the Chinese labor market is getting less affordable and more competitive. As people are seeing increase in wealth, it is affecting China's cheap labor sectors, and this is called the middle income trap. South Africa and Brazil are mentionable countries that saw stoppage in economic growth due to the middle income trap. As China has aspirations to become a superpower, they have taken measures for settling this issue, and the Belt and Road Initiative were introduced. This initiative has secured higher trading with the countries and also relocated their labor force to these countries for wealth maximization. Some experts call Africa as the new China due to its growing influence over the region. China has kind of created their modernized colony over the region which bounds these countries by law. According to economists, Africa will see economic growth by 2100 as age assigned the last century. The estimated population of Africa will be 4 billion by the end of the century. And China is taking over the region slowly to use or exploit these mass population for its benefits. However, the financial crash of 2020 was a major drawback to the plan. After 2020, China is also fearing off an economic meltdown which has slowed the Belt and Road down. Though it is slowing the process of Chinese modernized imperialism in China, it is also a drawback for African nations that were depending on the loans. An example is, China has stopped financing a super fast rail link between Kenya and Uganda. Due to shortage of cash, Kenya is now using 19th century old British tracks for finishing the rail link, and any expert would doubt the credibility of using these tracks. Cameroon has also seen a drop of 70% in financing after the global economic shutdown started. As China is only using the occupied territories for political gains, the future of the Belt and Road Initiative is a concern for all. And meanwhile, some countries like Sri Lanka in Asia or Kenya in Africa are paying the price.